Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us. As Greg said, this is part of our continuing series. As those of you who have joined us before know, we are doing these marketing support webinars on a weekly basis to give you the ongoing support that you get from being a member. And you obviously got a notice for this week's webinar, send those out each week, and then you register at least an hour prior to get the invitation. So we are so glad you're here. As Greg said, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. The first part we covered last week, which was how to write an effective technical paper. This week, the primary topic is how to get published. We do have, I am going to do a quick review in just a few moments, but we do have a very special guest with us today, David Brown, who is Director of FLIR's Infrared Training Center, and they are one of our vendor partners, and as most of you know, they assist you guys with your equipment and different things, so we are delighted to have him with us this morning and to have his expertise on how to get your paper published. Good morning, Dave. Thank you so much for joining us. We are delighted to have you here.
And I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. Thanks. As Cindy mentioned, my name is Dave Brown, and I'm the Director of the Infrared Training Center, otherwise known as ITC at FLIR. Before we actually look at the specific topics, I did want to clarify the scope for our discussion today. Last week's webinar on the topic of technical writing focused mostly on white paper specifically. Since this week we're learning about how to get published, we'll focus a little bit more on a magazine article format. First of all, we're going to be looking at content, and I know there will be a little bit of overlap with what you heard discussed last week, but because of the fact that, publishing is largely and primarily about writing, we will talk a little bit about writing your content. Secondly, we're going to be talking about any images that you may be submitting with your content. We'll be talking about how to find appropriate publishers to submit to, how to sell yourself to the publishers, the process of submitting your articles, the sales job that goes along with it, some various tips in no particular order, and finally we'll wrap it up with some information about a unique publishing opportunity specifically for thermographers. Even if you're confident in your knowledge of syntax and writing style, enlist the help of at least 1 or 2 other people who are knowledgeable about writing and have some experience in critiquing and editing the work of others. Your colleagues in the areas of roofing and HVAC and insulation, contracting and home inspection, those other authors who are submitting to the same magazines that you are, they all use images to complement the work they do, and their images can be an integral part of any writing. The difference for you is that your work as a thermographer is the image. Be sure that your image is tuned properly to support your message. Don't rely on your camera's auto mode or auto tuning feature to do it for you. Tune the image to make your target as compelling as possible. If your article is about moisture intrusion or air infiltration, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to clutter up your image with a lot of measurement spots or boxes. The best place to figure out where to submit your article for publishing is your own bookcase or magazine rack. Consider the magazines that you subscribe to or the trade journals read by your colleagues and competitors and customers. I've attached a list of some of the publications that have published some IR-related articles in the past in the areas of both buildings and predictive maintenance. This is by no means a complete list, but hopefully you'll find it helpful as a place to get started. Look for refereed publications, which require an extensive peer review process before accepting articles. While the process is a little bit more grueling, the benefit is a much higher level of credibility than you'd have with a non-peer-reviewed publication. Some will go into much more detail about things like style, footnoting, margin width, etc. Whatever they are, be sure to follow them. Failure to follow the guidelines will send the message that you either don't respect them or don't care. And either way, your submission is likely to be rejected out of hand. Just like any other type of sales, there's a fine line between persistence and nagging, and crossing that line can have the same effect, losing the sale. Likewise, don't take it personally when an editor suggests revisions or asks you to rework a couple of paragraphs. These requests are typical and commonplace and should, if anything, be viewed as a learning opportunity and expert advice from a professional. For those of you who are not already familiar with it, Information is the world's largest infrared thermography conference. It's held annually, usually in late October or early November. This year, the main conference runs from November 9th through the 11th at Bally's Casino in Las Vegas. And I specifically refer to it as the main conference because for the first time this year, we're also running 4 separate pre-conference sessions starting on Monday the 7th. 2 of them we're referring to as mini-conferences include optical gas imaging and research and science. And we're also holding 2 ITC certification classes starting on Monday and going through the week. And those are Building Investigations and a Level 2 class. Because Information represents the single biggest publishing opportunity there is specifically for thermographers. Anyone who presents at Information gets published in our online and or printed proceedings book. For the poster session, the authors will prepare an image or a series of images to be posted on a board or displayed on a screen in a large room in which participants wander around freely and examine presentations in which they have the most interest. General session presentations are 50 minutes in length, including a 10-minute open mic question and answer session at the end. And finally, we have the clinics. The clinics are less about information dissemination and more about education. If you have 3 hours worth of in-depth content in a how-to format, consider submitting a proposal for a clinic. Your clinic will be delivered classroom style in a breakout room with between 25 and 100 participants. Given its specific focus on infrared thermography, as well as the fact that we accept more than 50% of our submitters, Information may well be your best chance to publish your first article. But I don't want to overstep my bounds as a guest speaker, so I'll simply say that if you have any interest in participating in the world's largest thermography conference and networking with 500 of the most active and experienced thermographers in the country, visit our website at information.org and get yourself registered before the price goes up.
And I want to thank Dave because that was great. That's very, very well prepared, well organized, and well executed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg.
Again, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. Number 1, what helps a good white paper stand out from all the rest?
Well, I would say that, while the quality of the writing is important, as has been stressed on both this and last week's webinar, correct format and grammar and spelling and all that, I would say that there, 9 out of 10 papers on that editor's desk will have been well written. The one that's going to stand out and come to the top of that stack is the one that's written about a unique, compelling topic that nobody else has thought of, nobody else has done before. So I would say that's unfortunately, it's probably the most difficult thing, but it's also the one that's going to put your paper at the top of the stack, coming up with a very compelling topic.
And then I'll let you elaborate on that response if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is just a word of caution. Make sure that you know the rules of the place where you got published and the degree to which they will allow you to use that content in other places. It may be that it's fine to repost it on your own website, your own blog, or even resubmit it to another organization, but you need to make sure you're aware of that because some of them do have very strict policies regarding that.
Where are the best places to be published?
Look for the highest quality, widest read, and most focused publications in your area, and use those 3 factors. That you'll find in some cases that there are some very niche, highly focused magazines that don't necessarily have a large readership because they're so tightly focused, but you need to sort of factor all 3 of those things together and figure out for yourself, use your best judgment as to which will be the best combination of those factors for your article. The type of customers that do value your ability to get published professionally are the types of customers that you want, because those are the ones who are going to stand on your credibility, reinforce your credibility as references to other customers.
That's an excellent point.
I've been pushing you to attend information. If there's no way you can, and I know it's not possible for everybody, at least make sure you ping me or Gary or Love or Greg knows how to get in touch with us to make sure you get on our mailing list so that when the call for papers does go out, that you definitely get it.
We very, very much appreciate your time and also your efforts at information. I mean, you guys provide the best single venue for looking at infrared, all things infrared of anybody in the world. And so I'd like to personally thank you guys for the amount of work it is. I know how much work it is. And you guys work on it all year long, too. And thank you again for being on this call.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.